This story comes from NBC. GOP lawmaker attended gay son's wedding 3 days after voting against same-sex marriage. This is Representative Glenn Thompson. He's a Republican from Pennsylvania. And his gay son got married. Good for him. And then pretty much immediately, his dad voted against a bill which would have protected gay marriage, a bill which is only necessary because the Supreme Court has basically invalidated all of its prior rulings.
And it's in reverse order, right? So his dad didn't vote on it, and then he got married afterwards, right?
Yeah, he voted no.
Yeah.
And then after voting against, after voting to strip the rights of other people just like his son, 3 days later, he goes and celebrates his son's wedding.
It's so funny because you know for sure that one, you don't presume that he hates his son.
Right.
And I also don't presume that he's necessarily anti-gay in the sense that he dislikes gay people. I think what he is someone who recognizes his own constituency would be very upset with him if he did something and he knows something's gonna pass. And so he's just like these are people who don't have any principles. Never, ever, ever think that these people have a principle that they're standing on. They are only doing the things that they need to do to continue having this job. That is all they're doing. They're not doing anything that is, because most of the stuff they do is politically motivated. We talk about it on the show all the time, Tom. How many people like certain things that are a majority of people in the country agree that this should be a thing, and yet they still don't enact it. They still stop it from happening.
Constantly.
And it's because of, lobbying power to keep them in power. It's all about, knowing how they can cut up their little section of the pie every single time. And, I'm not letting this guy off the hook for being an absolute shit, right? I think he's an absolute shit. But I think that, it could also be, too, that he doesn't like gay people in general, but he loves his son.
Yeah.
There's a couple of options.
There are. The thing is, he gave a very nice speech at his son's wedding. There was video that came out and it was transcribed, and I read the transcription. He gave a very nice speech welcoming his new son-in-law into his family. It was a very unreserved sounding speech. It was a little awkward. He's not a good speaker, weirdly enough, but it was a little awkward, but he gave a very nice speech. I think a couple of things are important to note. I think you're absolutely right, Cecil, that guys like this, they're not acting on principle. They are acting on political impulse. And so we have to look at this and say, all right, well, if the political impulse for these people is so strong that they can't tell right from wrong anymore, then we need to adjust the system by creating very short term limits. We should be moving people in and out of this system of governance much, much quicker than we do. We should not have lifelong senators. We should not have lifelong congresspeople at all. You should not be getting term after term after term after term because now you're embedded in a system and you don't know how to go get another job. This should be something that you do for a short period in your life as an act of civil and public service. That's it. And if we can't figure that piece of this system out, this is the inevitable result. People will do a lot of shit to preserve their jobs and their power and their money. And I can't entirely blame people. I do, but I can't entirely blame people for preserving their ability to feed their family, right? Their ability to keep their jobs. Yeah. I do think these people generally have lots of options, but still.
I think they do too. I think, yeah, man. I mean, this is a privileged position and they can walk out and get another position really easily.
Really easily, man.
Yeah.
So, but term limits are part of the answer to this. I think the other thing to note is this motherfucker knew that his kid would not be affected. He knew that no law was going to get passed.
Too. Yeah. Right.
So these fucking assholes, they always get theirs first.
Yeah.
And then they take from you.
Yeah.
He was absolutely happy to make sure that he would attend his son's wedding because his son's rights were never in danger. The timeline doesn't work, right? Yeah. Pennsylvania didn't have a law. What he was voting on was a federal law, which will hopefully pass and will make same-sex marriage legal at a federal level, so states themselves can't restrict that right.
Right.
So there is not a pending piece of Pennsylvania legislation which would have gone into effect that could have affected his son's ability to get married. So he knew his son was going to get his.
Yeah.
So as long as he's safe, as long as his family's protected, then he's going to do the other thing that protects himself and his family, which is to do politically motivated shit.
And his son, probably because this guy's lived a privileged life, also has some sort of privilege that can probably, if it gets outlawed in his state, go to a place where he can, like they have the options to be in the parts of the United States that will allow gay people to continue their unions.
Yep.
Even if the Supreme Court rules against it or whatever, and they toss it back down to the states again, because that seems to be what they want to do. Well, if they do that, then they toss it back down to the states in places like Illinois and New York and California. And, 20 other places maybe on the map are going to say your marriage is fine here. And the other places will either be stuck between, maybe allowing unions or nothing at all. And so his son won't ever be stuck in Alabama.
Yep. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. This kind of disingenuous liar's bullshit, it's important to point out because the hypocrisy is preventable. The system can be revised. We can make changes to the system. Yeah. We can create term limits. We can make the process less just transparently politically motivated, personally politically motivated. We can fix it.
Yeah. I also, too, I know that there's a push for people to say, well, it's just hypocrisy. They're just hypocrites. There's nothing you can do. It's not going to change them. And I know that. This guy's not going to change his mind. And he doesn't care that this guy doesn't care this story's out. No. He literally doesn't care. It's not going to change him at all. It may be used as an attack ad in some ways against him by somebody else who's probably more conservative. Because I can't imagine a left-leaning person using this as an attack ad to be like, he goes to gay marriage weddings, right? Just like what do you do as his attack? I don't know what your attack ad even says. But a lot of people will say, pointing out hypocrisy doesn't matter. Yes, it matters. We have to point it out every single time, every opportunity we get. We have to point it out, and you have to keep pointing it out over and over and over again. Because when you start to let it slip, then it doesn't matter. And then they can just literally do whatever they want. But you have to always call them back constantly and say, no, that's a hypocrite stance. You're doing one thing, and then you're saying another. That's a hypocrite stance, and you've got to keep doing it.